Last Friday, I made a video talking about Colin Bridgerton and the one trait or quality that the other male leads in the previous two seasons and Queen Charlotte were able to convey properly by virtue of how their story was told, and how instead Colin was stiff, which to me led to his romance being not as good as the others. If you haven't watched that video yet, I'll leave the link to it in the description bar. Now, a lot of you all did enjoy the video and drop comments, which I really enjoyed reading. Thank you. However, I did notice that some conversations veered off to Kate Bridgerton, née Sharma, and her treatment of Edwina in their season, and that gave me the idea to make a video where I addressed the special condition and conundrum of being a stepchild within the family, how that affects the half-sibling relationship, and ultimately the question of, was Kate a good daughter to Mary and a good sister to Edwina? Let me know your knee-jerk response to that question in the comments right now, and then you can come back to your comment after you're through watching this video and had more thoughts, or let me know if I succeeded in making my point or not. But before I get into all of that, hello, I'm Noria. Welcome to my channel, where I talk media analysis, whether it be shows, movies, video games, anime, books, you name it. I make new videos every weekday, so who knows? Maybe I would succeed in introducing you to a new show you haven't considered, bring a new perspective, give confirmation to a thought you've previously had, or maybe say something you think is absolute hogwash. Do consider subscribing if you haven't yet. Like this, share it, support me on Patreon if you can, and let's get back to the video. Now, before I start, I would like to state that no way is this video trying to justify Kate's actions. I am firmly in the camp of people that believes that Edwina was right to be upset. Even if Anthony was also involved in the entire fiasco, and one could even say is the one who caused it all, he is at his core a man, a viscount. At a time when titled men hold a lot of power, especially the higher up the social strata that they are. Anthony does hold incredible power in that situation, but he's also a stranger. At the core is someone the Sharma sisters just met. Him breaking Edwina's heart and toying with her emotions can be explained away. Her sister partaking in the situation, however, is something that hurts Edwina irrevocably, even more than Anthony's betrayal, because one is a stranger and the other is family, and family should always have your back. So yes, I totally understood why she was hangry. Did she say something that caught Kate to the quick, which was harsh and brutal? Yes, she did. And I will go into the why that was a cut that stung particularly harshly for Kate later in this video. But hurt people do lash out, and Edwina was dealing with that betrayal and searched for words that would hurt Kate as much as she was hurt, that would rip her into shreds for the humiliation that learning the truth dealt Edwina. And it is those words, that cold declaration of half-sister, that basically drove me to make this video. Because to understand the crux of Kate's characterization in the show and why she's driven to such extremes to help Edwina gain the attention of a titled gentleman and thus secure her dowry from her maternal grandparents, even at the expense of her disregarding her own feelings, we need to look at the step-parent and stepchild dynamic and how it placed such a burden on Kate. Now, I've already talked about the parentification of Kate as a child and how that is something that she and Anthony have in common and something that drives them both, especially in their interpersonal relationships and how they relate with their younger siblings. But I never really addressed the elephant in the room. Edwina is Mary's biological daughter. Kate is not. And no, I'm not here to say that Mary hated Kate or that she was a horrible mother to her. That is clearly not the case, as we can see in their interactions with each other. However, her being her stepmother does matter to Kate's story, especially when we consider how that affected the development of Kate. In the paper titled Perceived Step-Parent-Child Relationship Quality, a systematic review of stepchildren's perspectives, co-written by Todd Jensen and Matthew Howard, The duo came to this conclusion after their study. Children likely retain a sense of support amid the transition to stepfamily life when their relationship to the resident biological parent remains positive and of high quality. However, we know from Kate's words that she didn't get to retain that positive and high quality relationship with her biological parent, i.e., her father, after the marriage because he died shortly afterwards, just after Edwina was born. And what that meant was that Kate's relationship with her family from that point became one where she felt like she was floundering, sinking in quicksand with no support, terrified that the only parent she had left, Mary, would abandon her should she not behave properly. And we can therefore assume that this is why Kate was so invested in taking charge after Mary fell apart following her husband's death. Like, yes, Kate had to step in to care for her baby sister and handle the household accounts because her stepmother was incapacitated by grief. But there's also the possibility that with the loss of her father in the mix, 8-year-old Kate believed that she needed to prove herself in order to be able to keep her family, and they were the only support she had left. That breaks you mentally. Now, I'm sure we all know that Kate has nothing to be afraid of. Mary loves her, and Mary Sheffield, even before she married Kate's father, is certainly not the type of person who would have casted a child away. But the thing about navigating a relationship with a step parent, especially one that comes into the family when you're a preteen, is that you're driven by the desire, this unexplainable need to have them like you. Because if they like you, then you know that your position in the family is secure, and there's no fear that should there be some sort of conflict, your biological parent would be forced into a corner where they would have to choose between you and their new partner. Because somewhere at the back of your childhood brain is the fear that they might not choose you. And if that's the case, then where would that leave you? Now, the reason why this entire topic fascinates me so much is because my parents separated when I was 5. My mother remarried just before I turned 8. And up until he passed away, I was raised by my mom and my stepfather. A man whose influence still echoes in my life today because I consider it a blessing that of all the men my mother could have chosen, she chose that one. The man who raised and loved me like I was his own. However, if you had told 8-year-old Noria that, she absolutely would not have believed you. Because my every waking moment was filled with the terror of, what if he doesn't like me? What if he has my mom send me away? What if I do something and he gets angry and goes away and my mom blames me for his leaving? All of these fears are illogical, now that I think back on them. But they were valid fears and concerns my 8-year-old self had. And when I look at Kate, I consider how she would have felt. Especially because at least I still had the comfort of my mom being there. Kate found herself utterly alone. Except for Mary and Edwina, and that in turn bred feelings of codependency that were most certainly not healthy. It's why she's driven so much to give and give of herself, to raise Edwina into the jewel of the season, one that no one would ever find fault in, because if Edwina is perfect and deemed as perfect, if Edwina gets to have her dreams realized and is seen and loved and adored, then Kate can be certain that she's done her part and done her best, that she's been good. Kate's very identity is tied to how well she's able to help Edwina, which is why her plan after Edwina married was to become a governess. As to her, a happily married and respectable Edwina meant that Kate had fulfilled her purpose. Then there's the extreme gratitude you feel towards your step-parents. Gratitude and unbridled thanks that they stuck around, that they didn't cast you out, that they loved you. And this doubly so for Kate because, like I stated earlier in the video, the absence of her father meant that the support that she could rely on and turn to was gone. And no, I'm not saying that Mary wasn't reliable, although back when Kate's father died, she really wasn't. What I meant is that the reliability that there is someone who you're related to by blood, whose responsibility it is to love you by virtue of your birth and them being partly responsible for that. With Kate's father gone, it meant that child Kate took it into her subconscious that although Mary might love her, it's not really the same. Because Mary isn't her biological mother like she is to Edwina. And so she believes and feels that she has to earn that love and she has to be grateful for it. The fears of having to navigate your relationship with your step-parent as a stepchild aren't the most rational ones. But when everything's turned upside down and you realize that some parents can check out from being there for you and loving you by virtue of circumstances outside of your control, then there's that added layer and pressure of, so what's the guarantee that this person who isn't even related to me by blood would stay? We see all these fears reflected in Kate when she breaks down in tears and expresses her worries to Mary post the cancelled wedding. The fear that she's undeserving and unworthy. And I've seen some comments on the interwebs where some people have tried to dismiss that scene, which to me read like, they were most likely raised by their biological parents, so have never been in that situation where you have to walk that careful line of being grateful for care and trying to earn the love that you don't think you deserve. Is what can be interpreted from Kate's vested interest in Edwina's comportment and the way she raised her. Because sure, Mary also played a role in raising Edwina. She is Edwina's mother after all. But like Edwina explains to Lady Danbury and to anyone who asks, everything she learned, everything she's been praised for by others, she was taught by Kate. And we notice that Kate Sharma, even though she's intelligent and witty and stunning and definitely stands out in the crowd, she's always holding herself back. She doesn't chase the spotlight, but instead pushes for Edwina to take it. Because for Kate, that's how she gets to pay her mother back for not abandoning her, and how she pays her sister back for loving her. It's why Edwina's pointed response of Kate being her half-sister hurt. Because to Kate, it was Edwina reminding her of her place that she would always be running, always hoping that she would, with her actions, have found a way to earn her place and earn her family's love. I've seen so many people point out that things wouldn't have gotten so bad if only Kate had simply told Edwina the truth, that she's falling in love with Anthony Bridgerton, and honestly, if that had happened, it would have saved us a ton of drama for sure. But for a character like Kate, who has felt that she has to earn her place and earn her love, I can totally understand why she wouldn't have had the courage. Why she would have felt that she's undeserving, unworthy of even thinking about it. Of course, there's the layer of the fact that her father isn't titled, nor her paternal grandparents. Edwina, on the other hand, has Lord and Lady Sheffield as her grandparents, which means that there's that added prestige that makes her a better match for a Viscount. Because there's still the subtlety of classism woven into Bridgerton that the show just subtly hints at and wouldn't dwell on fully until we get to Benofie's season. But back to my point, if you look back at all I've explored and explained, then doesn't it make a little bit of sense, a smidgen of one, that Kate wouldn't even think of voicing the words that to her are so selfish as to admit to wanting a man that her sister likes? If she's lived all her life and all her interactions with her family, earning their love and earning her place, is it not possible that she was terrified of jeopardizing that hard-won love and thought that it would best be a secret that she takes with her to the grave, a secret longing that she would never give voice to? Until, of course, everything blows up in her face and she was left reeling. It's why that scene with Mary hits me in the feels every time. As someone who did navigate that relationship with my stepfather, wondering if I was deserving of the love and care, terrified that if I didn't get good grades, act proper, do things right, be as trouble-free as possible, that I ran the risk of losing my family completely. As someone for whom that was my experience for the over 2 decades that I was blessed to have him alive and in my life, I understood why Kate couldn't speak. why she couldn't jeopardize things, and why it was because of her silence that she ended up making things so much worse. Watching the show without any of the emotional baggage that Kate has, the path to her happiness and Edwina not being made to feel like she was made a fool of, it was clear what her choice should have been. But Kate couldn't have known that. She was working with what she knew and years of conditioning and a very, very low self-esteem that she definitely needed copious amount of therapy for. And so she chose wrong. And Edwina suffered for it, as did Kate herself. Do I think Kate was a good daughter and sister? Yes, even with her mistakes. She's someone who would cut out her own heart and offer it to her sister because she believes that Edwina is deserving of everything that she can give, whilst Kate thinks herself worthless. Kate to me was a good daughter and sister to Mary and Edwina respectively, but she was not good to herself. And that's something that she needed to realize in the season and was the basis for her character arc. And now that she has her happy ever after, all I want for her and to other stepchildren out there is to find a love that stays true, that we can believe we are deserving of, a love that is all ours. What do you think? Did I make sense? Did I talk out of my ass? Did I bore you to tears? Let me know in the comments. Like this video if you made it all the way to the end and haven't hit the like button yet. Share it if you want to. Support me on Patreon if you want to. And until tomorrow's video, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.